Hello and welcome back to The Stage Door, presented by Canberra Arts on Rogers TV right here in Corner Brook. It is such a treat that we're able to get back to talking about upcoming events again. January is always a bit of a quiet time for the arts community, usually after a very busy December. This year, after a very busy October to December. And guess what? It's going to be a pretty busy February all the way to June. So we'll certainly have a lot of things to cover. This episode, I'm back with Nick Hamlyn. You may recognize him from earlier this season, talking about Bright Star. This time we're going to talk about something completely different, but adjacent. Nick is, of course, a notable musician, very recognizable around Corner Brook for the past decade at least. I would say probably more, from the high school years, Battle of the Bands, to now. So welcome back to The Stage Door, Nick.
Thanks so much. It's great to be a recurring character.
There we go, right? I was saying Nick is actually our first returning guest in the same season. So it's great that we have a community that allows for that.
Yeah.
And Nick
Next
has some
season,
exciting
my
things.
villain art starts.
There we go.
It's going to be something to see.
So stay tuned for that. So there's a lot of exciting things coming up that Nick is involved in. But before we talk about the exciting things, we're going to talk a little bit about Nick's musicianship. So what you can expect. And at the end of the episode, you'll get to hear a little sneak peek of some of the upcoming events. So Nick, we'll start going back. We just mentioned Battle of the Bands and that era. So what was it like growing up in high school in that era of Corner Brook's musicianship, with a lot of other musicians and bands being formed and having those big events and opportunities to perform in that way?
It was a different time. Back in the early oddies, the naughty oddies, we never called them. But yeah, no, I was in high school like 2003 to 2006, and we didn't notice it at the time, but like when we had a Battle of the Bands, there were 10 and 12 bands in it, right? Of just high school kids and younger, and like people coming down from Rocky Harbor and up from Stephenville. So like there was, each school had one, and then there was the big one up at the Arts and Culture Center for Carnival, which I think we got second place in 3 years in a row. It was fantastic. Turns out writing songs and being really good at your instruments would have been what we should have done, because that's who beat us, the people that were much better musicians. Hard to feel bad about it. But yeah, no, it was a really big community, and I mean, we had, a bunch of music stores at the time, and a bunch of all of these players that were mixing and mingling, which is great to see, and it's nice to see that coming back a little bit. I notice now with the high school kids, there's more and more people making stuff, which is always a blast. But yeah, it was great. I mean, we'd learn our 3 Blink-182 songs, and then we would play our 3 Blink-182 songs and think we were the coolest kids in the entire world, because we didn't know any better. But no, it was special. It was a little bit different. I mean, Ultimate Guitar had just come out earlier that week, and suddenly it was easy to learn all these songs, and without having to buy 100 Guitar Player monthly magazines. So yeah, we had an embarrassment of riches. It was a great time to be coming up in it.
No, definitely, and of course you have since become kind of a great charter of the songs, whether they're on that kind of Ultimate Guitar or not, and fixing, as is often the case. Yeah. But also, like, I think it's worth mentioning that we have such a great network of local musicians that can really guide that process,
Absolutely.
I remember one of our Canberra Arts galas, we were doing that, the Once tune, There's a Light in Your Window, and it was, you reached out to Phil Churchill.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, it is weird, here's why.
Yeah, there's a reason we didn't put guitars in that song.
Such a neat community that we have here, that we're able to share those resources. And I think too, it's worth mentioning, there are a lot of spots. Graham Academy has a studio program that, for some students, it's going into the Rotary Music Festival and working on those things. For other students, it's working on showmanship, working on getting that, particularly in your studio, with the string students. They're working on many layers beyond the technique and theory of the instrument, and sometimes working on how to captivate your audience, how to communicate that. So what would you say are kind of the lesser known layers of that type of showmanship that I think you've become quite known for? A Nick Hamlyn show is a Nick Hamlyn show.
Oh,
So
thank you.
you know, what goes into those layers of connecting things?
It's really.
factoids?
I've decided that that's a compliment.
It is
Thank you.
from me.
Hey,
I can't
take
speak
it.
for everyone.
Hey.
But
No, it's something it took me a long time, and I feel that in recent years I've really figured it out. Not figured it out as in I found the right answer. I figured out why it works for me, right? Those early, when you just start playing, and in front of people at least, it's extremely, you're vulnerable, right? You haven't written these songs most of the time. If you have, these advice isn't for you because you're more creative than I am. But yeah, no, if you're playing a cover show, you've got to add some element to yourself to it. Otherwise, you're just the radio, right? Get your songs tight and just play one right after the other. Awesome. But we've got Oz FM now. The days of waiting for a song to come on the radio are gone. So if someone wants to hear Wagon Wheel at any minute of their lives, they are 12 seconds away from hearing whatever song they want to hear. So if you're playing these cover shows or these tribute shows or variety shows or whatever you're doing, you've got to do something to get people in the room and to keep people coming back. And I've found that explaining or exploring what makes a song special to you and trying to convey that to the audience gives you that 2 or 3 minutes in between your songs where you need your breath, and it creates a little bit of a better communication between you, right? And even if you're just that kitchen player or a garage superhero guitar player, still think about what you're doing, why you're doing it. It's great to just kind of be able to do it okay, but add something to it, change something, bring an extra layer. And you only get that with experiencing a song, thinking about a song way too much, and playing, taking some risks, making some mistakes.
yeah,
That kind of stuff.
absolutely. I think that's an important layer, right? That a lot of people are scared to make the mistake, right? They'd rather not answer than answer wrong.
Exactly.
And I'm sure I found myself guilty of that at times. It's like, I think I know, but I don't want to say it.
Yeah.
So it is finding that balance of like, no, mistakes are good. Mistakes are a gift.
Yep.
They show us what will be right. Hopefully you make them in a space like a lesson where it's like, ooh, try it this way. We can correct it. But even if you make it in front of an audience, the great thing about Corner Brook is it is an audience that is usually there to see the show as it is and acknowledge those things, and you share them with them and have a bit of fun. I think learning to make a mistake in a live setting is actually valuable. I think sometimes, forgetting the words right is a funny thing to do, where you're like, yeah, okay, we're going to do back. And not make it, oh, no. And make everybody, including yourself, feel more uncomfortable. But keeping it light and being able to give that professional experience in a different way is, I think, a real gift to be able to have that experience, especially with Corner Brook. We have so many intimate venues, not only our own space at 110 Humber Road, which is very cozy living room vibes, nice hardwood floor, but also the Rotary Arts Center, which is a beautiful thrust stage with audience on 3 sides, along with a lot more, what I've noticed recently is a resurgence of live music in bar spaces and actually design around that. We have a place like Strums now that is really focused on that type of music. We have the Lounge that's getting live music. Park West is getting live music fairly regularly. So, what has that been like to see that come back? And why do you think that's happening as an artist in the industry? Why do you think it's starting to trickle back in beyond the obvious post-pandemic, we can do it again?
It's a breath of fresh air. The fact that I'm not nervous every time I walk into a restaurant now is that's a big change. And I'd love to say that I've thought about this enough that I realize it's something other than people are willing to leave the house again. But a lot of it is just that people are willing to leave the house again. And the shows have changed too. I've noticed a lot more. Shows have been getting earlier. Most of the venues you just mentioned, the shows are starting well before 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
Most of them are over by 11 o'clock, which is just that was a whiplash moment for me, where before the pandemic, my normal gig was 11 at night till 3 in the morning, which is a terrible span of time. Nothing good happens after 1 a.m. Yeah. But yeah, no, I think people are going out and whether they're going to see a show that they need to be actively engaged in, like they would at Camber or the Rack, or if they're just getting some background music, people prefer to hear some live music when they're out for an evening again, which is just great. Nothing against Muzak but also we have so many great artists in town. And it's a new wave, and for the first time in a long time, a bunch of people that are playing are younger than me. And there was like a full decade where, I'm just the young guy starting out. And then I'm 30. I'm like, how am I still the young guy just starting out? There was a real gap for a while. But now, a bunch of younger artists are starting to go. I mean, Dealey Robertson has opened up for me for a bunch of shows. I know Noah Thomas, who was one of my former students. He's played a few shows here. He's playing shows out in St. John's. Actually, talking about putting a show together, I got that phone call the other day. Hey, Nick, doing a John Prine tribute? You don't say. I feel like you'd know something about it. Maybe. And then I had an hour-long conversation about how many songs do you put in if you're a chatty performer, right? Because that makes a big difference. If you've got an hour and a half to fill, and you've got an hour and 20 minutes of music, other than saying the name of the song, you're not going to have a lot in there. So, like when I'm putting a show together, I count every song's going to be 5 minutes, because most songs aren't 5 minutes. And then 25% of the time is me talking about the songs. I answered the previous question during this question, but that's fine. It's an adventure.
There we go.
But yeah, so it's great to see that resurgence, and I think it's just people ready to engage in their community again, ready to go see some of this new talent, and or some golden oldies,
Yeah, and I think it is quite exciting, because a lot of the musicians that have been around are teaching. They're offering back. Phil Churchill has the Gingerbeard House, and is mentoring a student there in sound, which is so exciting. And not only do we have our studio, but Gary Bennett has a music studio, and 62 Broadway has been doing a lot of youth outreach work as well, and the team there. So I think there is a community, and the Rack has kind of officially branded its emerging artist program, which I think is so exciting, because it gives those outlets. And I think that has, the organizations and businesses that are arts focused and sit down, focus on the music, have actually been a part of the resurgence of community events at bars like the Lounge, Park West, and Strums.
Because we lost that youth support for a while. Like we started out talking about the Battle of the Bands. That went away a long time ago, and then there was that gap where no kids had a chance to play in front of people. And then Paul Heppelston stepped up with the Mr. H Presents in the open stage for the underage, and we did that forever. And I was involved with that. I was on that board with Paul, and that was magical. But then everything's got its time. And then the Rack has really stepped up, because it was that gap, and it gets scary when the kids aren't into it.
100%, because that is not only our future of performance, but our future of audiences and showing up. And I think in this era where we have unlimited choices, so it is finding the way to balance things out and finding the way to re-engage and go out. And going out is fun. And I think the earlier nights are part of that. Our late night routine has been swapped societally a little bit as an inward reflection. I think a lot of people aren't a lot of young people aren't drinking as much as they
Yeah.
used to talk on a much larger scale. You know, there's a lot more mocktails of good quality around. There's non-alcoholic beer of good quality that people are going out for. So I think those earlier nights are part of that. And I know us at Canberra Arts have really pushed that 7:30 start time for
so
shows.
great.
Which has been great, because whether it's a 90-minute show, like many of these shows are, or a 2.5-hour musical, it's nice to not be there until 11.
Yeah.
You know, I think there is a real privilege to get to go out and feel like you can hang out after without it being
The 11
1
o'clock
a.m.
number for decades meant the show was almost over, not we're starting now.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing thing. So.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit now about what's coming up. So you
Yeah.
have 2 significant shows of different styles. I think we'll talk a little bit about that too. On February 14th on Valentine's Day. So coming up soon at 7:30. So again, if you have that early reservation or the late night reservation, it's perfect for you. If you have the prime 7 o'clock reservation, you know,
You plan
I'm
too well.
very happy for you.
Yep.
But if not, come to a show.
Bring us some dessert.
Make it either the in-between of your evening. We do have a bar at the venue. We'll have some cocktails and mocktails, as well as some beer and wine. It's going to be a real treat at 110 Humber Road to share that show, Silly Love Songs. But in addition to that, you're working with the Rotary Arts Centre to do a tribute to Leonard Cohen, very popular annual event that's changed shape a bit through the years. That's January 31st and February 1st. So I think the first thing is, obviously these shows are shows that are tied together by something. One is tied together by an artist and a massive catalog. The other is tied together by a theme, Silly Love Songs, which in the Nick Hamlyn method is any song that mentions love at least once, much like the Nick Hamlyn Christmas. So I think, what is the difference that goes into programming? Obviously, you and I are collaborating on Silly Love Songs, and you have other collaborators for Cohen, but what's the key differences, would you say, for those 2 shows?
Yeah, so when I'm putting my shows together, it's either the normal Mod Podge of I throw my book up and see if anyone notices if I play songs in alphabetical order, section A. Then you've got the tributes that are like the Leonard Cohen. So where I focus there is we want to get a good representation of the artist, especially if it's an artist with as long a career and as broad a catalog. None of the man's albums match.
Nope.
Right? It's all over. And then there was those like 2 years in the mid 80s where he's like, you know what? This $100 Casio keyboard, it's my personality now, and it's never going to go out of style, until it immediately went out of style. But so you want to get the full range of the catalog. Cohen has so many heartbreaking songs, but so many groovy, funky songs that have a nice bit of beat to them, and then some utterly hilarious ones. So you want to represent those first and foremost. And then the secondary thing is you want to really show off your performers and give them a chance to bring their own thing to this music. We did the Fleetwood Mac show a little while ago, and our goal with that one was to sound as much like Fleetwood Mac as we can. Because it's something that we can reach for. It's there's songs that have very intricate arrangements that if you change it at all, everybody notices, and you can tell it's something different. Leonard Cohen's a different kind of beast because he wrote these amazing songs, but by his own admittance, he did not record the best version of most of his songs. And that wasn't his intention. So this is a catalog that some songs like, Bird on a Wire, if you keep it small and pretty, it's perfect. But you can take that lyric and that melody and put it in front of a jazz ensemble or in front of a blues band or in front of a hard rock band or bluegrass, and that same song takes on 4 different personalities. So that's when you adjust to who you have in the band and who wants to show off. So that was a terrible example because Bird on a Wire, we're keeping it little itty bitty.
I think there's always those type of songs, right? Like Suzanne works very small. You listen to Cohen's version, it captures something. But then you listen to Nina Simone's version, and it captures something completely different, you know? So it is
so much of this magic
it's
in these
such an
songs.
interesting artist.
And we've got such a great lineup. I'm playing myself, Casey Callahan, Amy Erickson and Kevin Hamilton are the Lovely Bones, and Keith Harding on drums. So we've got 4
Wow.
top-notch singers.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's too bad you don't have a singer.
Oh my gosh. We were rehearsing, and we got to the point in So Long Marianne where the harmonies would come in, and I had 3 people hit the same harmony, and we're like, oh, what a fun problem to have. Brought it back, and then 8 seconds later, 4-part harmonies. Just it's so magic. So that's what we're doing to this show. I mean, there's still going to be the little acoustic numbers, but we're doing a lot of big vocal arrangements. We're doing we're letting Casey Callahan and Amy Erickson just sing as only they can. Fantastic. And yeah, and then we're doing like the Joe Cocker version of First We Take Manhattan, right? Add a little bit of pump to it, add a couple rock and guitar solos, and just add some of that variation so that the show never feels stagnant, right? Yeah. If you watch a Leonard Cohen show like The Isle of Wight in 1970, it's him and a few guys sitting on chairs and an acoustic guitar, but that's you watching Leonard Cohen do it in the moment. Yeah. And there's something special about that. These songs have been, through the ringer. So it's fun to try to bring something new and engage that interest while still triggering that nostalgia that people have for those artists.
100%, Yeah. So whereas going into silly love songs, very different process where...
Yeah, so it's like I've got my little bar lounge shows, and then we've got our tribute shows, and then we've got my favorite thing in the world, the lost art of the variety show. They just they don't exist anymore, right? To be Cher in 1973 with that show, where it's the Jackson 5 one week and the Ronnie James Dio the next week.
She did a one-woman West Side Story herself, which is astounding. If you want to watch it, it's great.
My absolute favorite one that she ever did was a tribute to Stevie Wonder, where in the 70s she could have got whoever she wanted on her show, and she got the Osmonds. Like that's who we need to really pay tribute to Motown's Stevie Wonder. And they all nailed it. Admittedly, but there's a lot more sparkles than I think there needed to be. But yeah, so it's that. So pick a theme, and the thing about themes, they don't matter. You just need that starting point. Some of my favorite ones I've done in the past, I've done happy, sad songs, which are our songs that sound happy until you think about them too much, and they break your heart. I did songs from my grandfather, which were all songs that I found in this old book that he and my grandmother hand wrote out, and they're all covers. It's just 7 Spanish Angels by Willie Nelson, but they're written out, and it's something special about it. Yeah. And then I did To All the Girls I Loved Before, which was me trying my very best to cover all my female artists. Excellent. And so this one, silly love songs. Allegedly, people have had enough of them, but I did look around, and it seems untrue. Almost had it. As you know, as you're in the show, there are you think love songs, my brain goes right to the American Songbook, the L is for the way you look at me, and all of those, but then you get your love hurts, you get your, you get your love stinks, right? Love is a many wondrous thing.
Love is a battlefield.
Love is a battlefield.
Lots of great tunes, and this year, it's worth noting this is actually a return to a show that really kind of launched Canberra Arts as that kind of presentation space throughout the year back in 2019, I think. A long time ago. Great to be able to come back to it in 2025 with Alison Clark, who is just going to be a fabulous addition on the keys. Lots of songs for everyone. So like I said, that is at 7:30 p.m. on Valentine's Day, February 14th. So following your reservation or in advance of your reservation, or if you don't have a reservation,
I need a date
spot with us.
So, give us a call.
I will say you can bring a friend or a date and get a discount on those tickets. So 2 tickets for $50. Tickets are available at canberraarts.ca for that. And in addition to Silly Love Songs and the Cohen Tribute, the Rotary Arts Centre has a couple events coming up that I'd like to highlight. On January 27th, A Touch of Pink, Ian Iqbal Rashid's film. That is going to be a real treat, just coming off of a big anniversary event in Toronto and now in Corner Brook to see that with Ian present, which is so exciting. And then the project from Tara Emanuel and Michael Rigler, The Tentacles Claw. Picture NL is presenting that at the Rotary Arts Centre, again with some of the creative team present. That's on January 29th. Of course, Leonard Cohen Tribute Show, January 31st and February 1st from our friends at the Rotary Arts Centre. And in February 14th, Silly Love Songs at Canberra Arts' Space, 110 Humber Road. And the following Friday, on the 21st, will be Piano Woman. Jennifer Billard celebrating the piano music of Elton John, Billy Joel, Carole King. That is going to be a real treat. So tickets are online, canberraarts.ca. Reach out if you would like tickets. Send us an email. We'll make sure that we're able to book you in. And to close things off at the stage door, we have Nick Hamlyn doing a little teaser of a silly or not so silly love song. I don't know what the tune is yet. And I'll see you next week back at the stage door.
Fell in love with a girl. I fell in love at once and almost completely. But she's in love with the world. Sometimes the feelings can be so misleading. She turns and says, "Are you alright?" I said, "I must be fine because my heart's still beating." I come and kiss me by the riverside. Well, Bobby says it's fine. Don't consider it cheating now. Red hair with the curl. Mellow roll for flavor, eyes for peeping. Can't keep away from the girl. Two sides of my brain, they need to have a meeting. I can't think of anything to do. Well, my left brain knows that all love is fleeting. She's looking for something new. Yeah, I said it once before. It bears repeating now. Ba-ba-da-da-da. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da. Ba-ba-da-da-da. Ba-ba-da-da-da.